Hey guys, and welcome back to the official podcast of Development Unplugged. And today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship with the element. And yes, if you hear my voice a little scratchy, or if I am coughing during this episode, I apologize. I am recovering from a pretty harsh cold, but I think I'm up for it. Let's see. And if not, my sister is here and she'll back me up. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship with the elements. I know we've already tackled the topic of entrepreneurship and how personality psychology really plays a very big role in not burning out, having more impact, being better at selling, and really taking into consideration the differences on your team with your collaborators and really be able to bring out the best in people. And today is a bit of a continuation of that. I mean, it is something that I think deserves more time, more airtime here on the podcast. And it's also something that hopefully in this episode we can go a little bit more in depth, talk a little bit more about the elements, how they really show up. If you're new here on the podcast, here at Develop Beyond, what we do is we talk about personal development, professional development. We do it in a way that we basically don't want to be a one-size-fits-all. We want to take into account each person's individual context.
Yeah.
I can't even speak. Bear with me today, please. Bear with me. And their personalities, their instincts, their needs. Because when we are respectful, when we are empathetic, when we are really seeing people for who they are, not putting them in a box, not limiting, not defining them and saying, oh, you are this personality, so you can only do this. But really understanding, oh, this person, if they are given this basic stimulus, if they're allowed this process, if they are provided with this information, then they're going to be much more productive, much happier. One of the things that we've seen here a lot is when we respect each other's personalities, things flow much better than when we try to force our way of doing things. And the reality is we all have our own instincts, our own experiences that lead us to think a certain way, act a certain way. And it's very easy to be like, yo, do it this way because it works for me, so it must work for you. Or if you can do it, you can do it, right? So in Develop Beyond, we try to avoid all that like one-size-fits-all mentality, because one-size-fits-all training, one-size-fits-all approaches to personal development, it doesn't work.
No, it's really something that's quite unfortunate that we see in a lot of business trainings where they tell you, okay, this is the way you have to act. This is the way you have to be a leader. This is the way that you have to sell. This is the way you have to do all these things. This is the way you're supposed to manage your time. And that might work really well for some people. But then all the people that work differently, that are wired differently, that don't benefit from that way of doing things, they're going to feel wrong, and they're going to feel like, oh, I'll never be able to be a leader. I'll never be able to do business. I'll never be able to be an entrepreneur. You know, we get so many people that are certain personality types that are not the most commonly associated with leadership and entrepreneurship. And they come to us and they're like, I don't think I can be an entrepreneur. I don't think I can be a leader because I'm not like this other person or these other people.
There are a lot of myths about what personality you have to have or how you have to approach things. And yeah, some of the best leaders in history have actually been introverts that have been very precise with their words and have taken a maybe more, how shall I say,
like calculated, methodical route?
Yeah, that would be those are exactly the words I was looking for. Exactly those. No, but actually, that's a very good point. Extroverts, I'm an extrovert myself, primarily. I am ambivert leaning to extrovert. And extroverts, they think out loud, they take more, how should I say, they take more risks, and sometimes it can be good and sometimes it can be bad. In fact, introverts, they should learn from extroverts to take more risks generally. Extroverts should learn from introverts to be a little bit more methodical. And that's the thing, you know. Well, I've worked in sales, I've worked in recruiting, I've had businesses, I have businesses in multiple countries, and in different languages and all this sort of stuff. And I'm amazed by how often you have people that have these very black and white ways of doing things. Very like when I was in sales, for example, I was constantly told that the best way to sell was to slow down the sale, which comes from a very good place. Because if you are too fast, you don't get enough context, don't get enough information, you don't ask enough questions to make sure you're providing the proper service, the proper solution to your client's problems. So there's a missed opportunity for upsells, for extras, and also an increased risk of someone going home and having forgot the batteries or the mouse to their computer or something essential that they really need and have to return to the store frustrated. There's also an increased risk of them going home and being like, this doesn't do what I want.
Yeah.
How many times have you or someone you know, how many times have you seen salespeople sell devices that don't really solve people's problems? Like with computers. I used to sell computers. And many times the salespeople that I worked with, they would sell the computer they liked. So, for example, if someone was a Mac guy, they would sell Mac to everyone. Or if someone was a gamer, they would sell gaming computers even to students who didn't game at all. And while many of these devices can do many different things, all of a sudden there were people that came back to the store and were like, so this one doesn't run the software I need for my school. Or this one is too heavy. Or this one is too this and this. So the priorities and the needs of the client weren't met because the sale was too fast, right? So this idea of slowing down the sale comes from a good place. It is correct for many cases. But if you tell that to an introvert that already might be very slow, methodical, asking a lot of questions, might be very organized. I say might because it's not black and white. It might take a long time and kind of try to make sure that they have all the information to put all the pieces together. Maybe telling them to slow down is not good because they might have way too few clients in a day and maybe they need to speed up. I say that because I myself, being an ambivert and having some insecurities, social anxieties, I have been a top salesperson and a bottom salesperson. I have sometimes sold 3 times more than anyone in my department, and sometimes I've really been just scraping by. And the reality is the differences between when I sold a lot and when I sold very little was my managers, my leaders, how well they were at motivating me and stimulating based on how I function, or how good they were at invalidating me and making me feel wrong and just
I think a lot of us have had that experience, whether it be in school with different teachers or in different workplaces with different bosses, where we've been really good at something and we've been really bad at the same thing. Like I know for me in math in school, I was usually top of my class in math, but in high school 2 times I had this one same teacher who just did not know how to speak to me and how to encourage me. And I'm the kind of person that if you don't pressure me, I'll do a great job. If you pressure me and you're hanging over my shoulder and telling me how to do things, I'm going to do a really bad job because I'm going to get nervous. I'm going to overthink things more. I'm going to second guess myself more, etc., etc. So I had this one teacher that like in front of the whole class would point out all of my mistakes, like stupid mistakes, stupid mistakes, stupid mistakes. You're making all these stupid mistakes. And I'm like, I failed so many assignments and exams with him that like I don't think I failed anything else.
And
like
she historically has basically been a straight A or 8+ student, like on what do you call honor roll or dean's list?
Yeah, been on the dean's list
and all those like
yes, like school worked for me in many ways because I am primarily introverted. I do tend to look at things with detail. I learned through reading, so it worked for me. For the most part, the system, but that one teacher just didn't get me.
And this is where I know it's entrepreneurship, but like if you look at school, notice how everyone learns differently.
Yeah.
How everyone has different types of intelligences. Like they have different abilities. And I, for example, in the school system felt stupid.
Yeah.
I felt like a failure throughout the school system because like when there was a presentation, I could be charming in front of the class. When there was an assignment that I was very passionate about, I could get top grades. But like memorizing things, doing exams and tests and things like that, I was actually very bad.
Yeah.
Well, inconsistent more so than anything. And it was very frustrating coming from an academic family and feeling like a failure all the time. And it took me a long time to realize that there are different ways of being intelligent, and where I shined was socially and emotionally. Where I didn't shine was academically.
Yeah, and I want to add something to that, because it's good you specify academically, because it's not intellectually that you couldn't do it. It was academically based on how the system works. Like, there are some things that we will feel that we're stupid at or that we're not good at based on the way in which we've been taught it, that learning it in a different way might actually really work for us. And you're the kind of person who can self-teach really, really well. Like, you want something, you want to do something, you want to build something, you find the information and then you do it.
No, and that's why self-education is so important. I mean, personal development, really, it's self-education. And any type of field, like, I have taught myself how to design websites, how to build and fix computers. I've taught myself photography, cinematography, all these sort of things, because there's so much access to information now that if you know your learning style, you can learn anything, no matter whether or not you're good in school. And I mean, many of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world have been college dropouts. Many have been very good academically, but many have sucked academically. Gary Vee, who's like right now one of the biggest people in marketing and social media, who has a huge multi-million-dollar marketing firm, he failed miserably in school. And he constantly talks about how he failed miserably in school, and like, but look at all what he's creating and all the impact he's having and all the lives he's changing. And that's the thing. When it comes to entrepreneurship, we have to understand self-worth. And we have to understand personality psychology, because these stories we're telling now about school system, learning styles, different ways of being intelligent and things like that, all those things affect your business. And yes, you might be a person who feels like, ooh, I don't have the social skills because I'm too introverted. Newsflash for you. Social skills can be learned and developed. And being an introvert doesn't make you an asocial or antisocial person. It just makes you seek out more alone time, more structure, more tranquility. You might get overwhelmed with high social stimulus. But if you recharge your social battery, you can perform very well. If you work on your insecurities and build confidence, and introverts do it very well through mastery, really learning a topic very in depth and being prepared for anything that might show up, then they will perform very well socially. They can perform very well in settings where they're really passionate and full of knowledge. I mean, how many of you know introverts that, generally speaking, they're usually quiet, but a topic of interest comes up and they can talk, and they can show such a depth, like, to the understanding of the topic, and it's like, wow.
No, it's really fun because our dad is a professor and he's very, very introverted. So we see him at home. He's not talking a lot most of the time. You know, he is a very caring person. He is a very loving person, but he's a very quiet person. You know, he sits there. Everyone else is talking. Everyone else is sharing their plans, their projects, their ideas, things like that. And he's just there quietly. And at one point, I was attending the university where my dad was a professor. And I had a classmate who was actually in one of Dad's classes. And he came up to me and he was like, hey, I know your last name. I have a problem with your last name. Is this your dad? And I was like, yeah, that's my dad. And he was like, he's so cool. He's so charming. Like, he's really fun. And like, seeing how someone else responds to and knows my dad was really, really cool, because we usually see him when he's at home.
We know him as the quiet one. So that's
so knowing that he's actually very outgoing and charming in his classes was really nice. It was nice getting to sort of know my dad in that other way.
And it's funny because I've learned that with my dad. I can get him talking for hours.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like, okay,
asking the right question.
He's a political scientist. So like, talk politics, talk international relations, talk anything related to that. And it's like, you can get him talking for hours.
Yeah.
But anything else is just, the thing is, introverts, they think before they talk, right? Because they want to pick the right words, they want to pick the right narrative, they really want to make sure that they have all the information. But when there's a topic of interest, of passion, then that I'm going to say perceived shyness, and I'm going to clarify that perceived shyness goes away, because shyness is the fear of judgment. It's not it's not the same thing as introversion. Introversion is need for less social stimulus, and just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you're inherently shy.
Yeah.
Yes, many introverts are shy, but so are many extroverts. Just it's easier to see in introverts because you add the fact that they're careful with the words and they're a little reclusive, or sometimes very reclusive, on top of their social anxieties, their social fears, their shyness. Then it gets amplified. With extroverts, they have the basic instinct, the need to socialize and connect, that's stronger than introverts. So sometimes they can be impulsive and punish themselves afterwards and judge themselves afterwards.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can freeze. I've already shared many times in the podcast all these social anxieties I've had in the romantic side, and in like even in sales, like after being rejected, then the rest of the day I might reject myself, like things like that. Fear of rejection has played a big role in my life.
Yeah.
And there have been times where people have been like, "You're so quiet," and it's like, "Yep, that's
Not
my insecurities. that's not my personality. That's not how I am."
Yeah.
And like when we understand this, it really gives you power. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what personality you are. If you want to do something, you can do it if you find what you're passionate about. If you find how to recharge your battery, that's what we call regenerative spaces in developed development. And like, what are regenerative spaces if you're new here? Well, it's the social stimulus that helps recharge your battery. That's the simplest form. But more so than that, it's activities, it's the environments, it's the human connections, it's all the things that by you spending time doing that activity or spending time with that person or pursuing that thing, you will feel better. You'll have more inner peace. You'll have more energy. Mm-hmm. You'll have more mental clarity. Sorry, that's the cold. And you'll just be a better version of yourself. And that's something that if you don't know yourself, if you're not self-aware, how are you going to be a successful entrepreneur? Mm-hmm. It's going to be tough. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you're going to burn out much more often. You're going to burn other people out more often. You're going to invalidate other people more often. You're going to invalidate yourself more often. And the road is going to be much harder. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurship is already a hard road.
Yeah.
Don't make it any harder.
Yeah.
Like,
no, and another factor of regenerative spaces is how you do the things you already have to do. Because the same activity, you can do it in different ways. For example, if you're going to sit and write a book, you can lock yourself in your room, spend hours, day and night, writing, totally focused on it, and not do much of anything else. Or you can write 5 minutes, get up, walk around, talk to people, sit back down, write another 5 minutes, get up, do some things, get back to it, write, and then you're doing something else, and then you write some notes on your phone, and then you're doing something else, and you write some things on paper, and then you come back, and then you add it all to the big book. Like, you can do the same thing in different ways. And that's something you have to understand both about yourself and your team members. Don't judge the process if the results are there. Yeah. Like if somebody is achieving things, they are working on the things they're supposed to be working on, and they're doing a good job, then that should be the main priority, not how are they doing it. Because some people, they need to take more breaks. They need to move around more. They need to socialize more, even if they're doing introverted work.
How many people have become smokers just to have more breaks at work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, because their work doesn't provide them with enough regenerative spaces. So they go, okay, the easiest way that I can disconnect, breathe a little bit, is to start smoking, because people who smoke get more breaks. And it's
a socially accepted way of getting out of the office for a little bit, talking to some people, and then coming back to what you're doing.
But if you look at, startups that by now are no longer startups, but like huge Silicon Valley giants, you take almost any campus, any office of any of the big Silicon Valley companies, they have regenerative spaces. Yeah. They have capsules for introverts to disconnect. They have sports. They have bicycles. They have food. They have sometimes massages and like free spa treatments, and like they spoil their staff, but their staff also gets results because they feel happy, they feel at peace, they don't feel stressed, they're not counting the minutes to go home. Like, and with those Regenesis spaces, more stuff gets done, and less stuff gets forced. And as an entrepreneur, you gotta identify, when are you forcing things? Are you forcing yourself? Are you forcing your staff to do things in a way that's not working for you? Because if you're doing that, you're not going to get to where you want to be. You're going to burn out everyone. And I say that with experience. I mean, this is not my first business. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for years. I've done all kinds of other projects, and my previous businesses, I would burn out people. I would invalidate people. I would tell them, if I can work 20 hours a day, so can they. I used to be like, look, I mean, when this company started in Silicon Valley, they were eating ramen, so let's eat ramen. Like, I used to really have this idea of like, we gotta kill ourselves first and then live like kings. But in my way of doing that, I was really not considerate of what everyone needed to be their best self. So we were working many hours, but we were so burned out that we were not being productive. And then when I learned about all this stuff, and I learned about personality psychology and regenerative spaces and like all of this sort of stuff, it's like, whoa. I can do in 2 hours what I've spent 3 days doing, or I can do in half an hour what I've been trying to achieve for a week. Like, when you're regenerated, you have the mental clarity to really get stuff done. But also your staff, I mean, turnover. I remember in the early days of being an entrepreneur, it was very easy to get people excited for a project. But they wouldn't last because they would burn out, they'd be frustrated, expectations weren't met. Like, and now with this project, sure, we have a bit of turnover, but I mean, most of our core team, there hasn't been any real big turnover in the last year. And that's because we really respect the differences. We value the differences. We stimulate them. We see that person isn't concentrating, that person isn't being productive. Let's invite them out to go to the mall or watch a movie, or, you know, tell them, you know, do you want to play a video game or watch a, like, do you want to go out dancing, whatever. Like, we kind of know what everyone needs, and both with phrases, but also inviting them or encouraging them to do certain activities.
And that's a small thing that makes a big difference. Instead of reprimanding the person, instead of judging and getting mad at the person, yelling like, why aren't you getting things done, you're being lazy, blah 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 blah, which unfortunately happens in a lot of workplaces, just being able to recognize, oh, this person's drained, maybe I should help them regenerate. If they're introverted, give them space. Say, you know what, you can take this home, work on it in your room, or go to a cafe and continue, you know, get away from the crowds for a bit. Or if they're extroverted, invite them to something that's fun, that's more high activity. And then people come back refreshed, and people come back impressive. With more focus, with more ideas too. Because sometimes getting away from what you're working on for a little bit gets you thinking about other things that suddenly relate back to the thing that you're working on. And we don't get that if we're working 20 hours a day forcibly. And
that doesn't mean that you don't sometimes need sprints. As leaders, sometimes you got to push people and be like, I know you're drained right now, but we got to push through. I mean, we have a big deadline here, and sometimes we got to find express ways of regenerating. And that's why we have 3 types of regeneration. We have the active generation, which is the most effective. It's let's go do this, let's go seek this activity that stimulates you so much. But then there's also passive regeneration, which is, how is the space organized? How is it visually? How does it feel to be in that space? If an office is organized correctly, the colors, the textures, the chairs, like, the people will be able to regenerate just being in that space and choosing what area within the space to hang out in. That's what many of the big companies in Silicon Valley do so well. You don't have to leave the campus to regenerate. You might just go to a different corner, a different nook, or increase or lower stimulus, but you can still be productive and feel good. And yes, sometimes it's your insecurities, and that's what we talk about, proactive regeneration. And it's reevaluating, am I trying to be something I'm not because of insecurities? And is there a more efficient way to do the things I'm doing without invalidating myself?
Yeah.
And there also, by working some inner stuff, a lot of great stuff can come from that. But really, when you respect these things, exactly, I mean, you don't force things. And how many of you, maybe I'm going to give you a different example. Parents, how many times do you make mistakes because you're drained, and then your parents punish you, and then you get more drained and you make more mistakes?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's also happened to you in business, but I think that parents' example or teachers' example is one where, my parents didn't have the context, and I couldn't tell them, and they were punishing me, and then I get more drained, and I get stuck, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, and the same happens with leaders, and that's where communication is key. If we communicate our context, our personality, our needs, our instincts, our desires, our goals, all that good stuff, then leaders have much more information to really manage better.
Yeah.
And that's why it's the leader's responsibility to seek out the information, understand each person's individual contexts, so that it becomes so much easier to manage people.
Yeah.
Because I remember I used to punish people. I used to be so harsh on people in my previous businesses. I'm like, you're wasting an opportunity. You're slacking. You're being irresponsible. You're being this. You're being that. Now it's like, okay, go be responsible for a bit and then come back and let's get some stuff done.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not how I say it, but it's like, okay, I can see you're not focusing right now. Okay, how can we get your battery back up? And it really, I mean, most of the time it works very efficiently. If it's not working and you try a bunch of things to regenerate your staff, you have to identify if there's something within the company that's draining them so much that they have to escape to recharge.
Yeah.
And then you haven't diversified the Regeneration spaces within your company. Then it's literally you pushing them away. And I'm saying you because as leaders we're responsible for everyone that kind of reports to us, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that here in the office we've identified there were periods where people were more drained than usual, and we would try to regenerate them, and yes, we'd get them back on track. We would go to the movies, we would do a little field trip or whatever, or we would buy them cool things, and we would really get them excited again. And then a day or two passed, and then their energy would go down. And that was okay, this is not sustainable, what's going on? And then it was often communication errors, organizational errors, things that weren't optimized, things that caused more frustration than it should, people that felt invalidated or not heard, things like that. And then I was like, okay, how can we fix those energy leaks?
Yeah.
And when we fixed those energy leaks, we needed much less regeneration, because regeneration spaces can be an escape from draining things. And when it comes to business, you have to identify, are you draining your staff so much that they have to escape, that they have to take more smoking breaks, that they have to take more holidays, that they're counting the minutes to the shift ends, or counting the minutes to the weekend. If that's the environment you're creating, then with all the regeneration in the world, it's gonna be like this. Entrepreneurship anyway is like this, but it'll be much more
up and down.
Yeah, it'll be crazy.
Yeah.
And that's where taking the time to really understand, there's an energy leak here, let's patch it, let's fix it. Okay, and then let's diversify regeneration spaces within the company so that they don't always have to go out. But extroverts will have to go out more. Extroverts will have to seek out more change. But even within the company, you can do things so that they get more change and more constant variation.
And we've been talking about extroverts and introverts quite a bit in our examples, and I want to give a bit of time to ambiverts, because some of us might have the extrovert introvert thing relatively down, but we have to also look at ambiverts, primarily the ambiverts that really the majority of their personality is in a middle point, because there are ambiverts that are basically half introverted, half extroverted, and then there are ambiverts that are majority somewhere in the middle. And when you're with those people, you have to make a very personal connection with them. You have to talk to them. You have to sit with them sometime. You have to listen to them, talk about things that are unrelated to work, so that they feel personally involved in the project. Because, these are people that if it seems too cold and transactional, they're going to give less to the job. But if they have a personal relationship with you and a personal connection with you, then they're going to give everything to the job because they care very deeply about the people around them. So little things like just asking, how was your weekend? How you been? How did that thing go with your mother? Or, that thing you told me about the other day, I remembered and I saw this and I thought I'd let you know or show you. Little personalized details once in a while can make a big difference for them to feel like, oh, they're personally included in this. They're personally being looked after and cared about. So they're going to give that back, and they're going to give 100% to the project as well.
This stuff you're sharing it's very valuable and very important, because exactly with ambiverts, that's a very essential thing. Now, if you don't understand personality psychology, you're going to be like, but that's important for everyone. And yes, to some degree, human connection, feeling special, feeling valued is important for everyone. And yes, sometimes the ones that look like they need the least are the ones that need it the most. So yes, giving all the different personalities, showing them that you value them, that you appreciate them, all that sort of stuff is essential. But, for example, if you look at introverts, introverts are generally more private people.
Yeah.
They are they tend to also be a bit more logical and a little bit more task-oriented. It's not quite the right wording. Let me see if I can find a better way to describe it.
Yeah, I think there's more of a tendency for introverts to look at, okay, what needs to be done? How do we do it in the most efficient way? Okay, done. And sometimes personal things can seem like a distraction. It obviously depends on the context. It depends on the relationship you have with them. If you already had a personal relationship before going into the business, or if you develop one within the business, that's fine. You can befriend introverts. That's not a bad thing to do. But if they feel like your relationship is primarily professional and you're trying too hard to personalize it and get really into the details of, so how's your mom and what's your family like and are you in a relationship and, oh, you looked happy, did you get laid? Like things like that can seem really invasive for a lot of introverts, especially if you don't have already that kind of relationship built up. So there you want to focus your compliments and attention on the work that they're doing. Like, hey, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, the results that we're getting, things are flowing really well since you arrived. Like, these things that you're doing, they're incredible. That for them will feel personal at the right level.
Yeah, and you can make them open up more. You can generate a more intimate, vulnerable, expressive, open communication with introverts. But the route is just a little different in the sense that if you do it too fast, they'll be like, okay, that's invasive, or that's cringy, or
that's uncomfortable, like word work here.
Whereas extroverts, they are a little bit more like open books. They're like, oh, yeah, sure, here. And they're maybe overshare. I, for example, I'm an expert in oversharing because I basically have no secrets. Like, you can ask me anything.
We always know what's going on in his personal life.
I mean, I'm an open book in that sense. Like, I hide my insecurity sometimes and my fears and stress, and they can see it in me. But when it comes to like day-to-day stuff, it's like, this is what's going on. And it's like, I just keep everyone updated. And it's like, it's the most natural thing in the world for me. But for introverts, they are more private. They're more. They just, it takes a little more time to build that level of intimacy. So if you're an ambivert, just be respectful of that with your introverted colleagues.
And again, it doesn't mean don't talk to them at all. It just means start looking at more work-oriented things, compliment them primarily based on that, and then let them start opening up.
And ask questions like, how are you feeling? Like, you can ask them questions that will make them open up little by little, but
without going too specific and too direct into one particular thing.
Kind of keep it wide, keep it like non-invasive, and then you will see that they will little by little open up. And then the more rapport you have with them, the more like trust there is, the more you can ask direct questions. And really, it's not about tippy-toeing. It's not about not doing it, because I've definitely seen relationships with introverts go much more profound when you can talk about things because
Yeah.
they have their internal narratives like anyone else, but they're very good. All people are good at filling the blanks with insecurity. So the more context that's communicated, the more open communication, the better.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to make someone shut down by coming on too strong
Yeah.
or really.
Yeah, no,
Like-
once you've built a relationship, once they've, shared a few sort of more personal things with you, like, oh, instead of just saying I'm fine when you ask how they're doing, actually I'm a little bit tired, or actually this thing happened, if they start sharing little by little and they see your reactions and they start building that trust, they start knowing, okay, this is someone I can share things with and things are going to be okay. They're not going to attack me or judge me or anything like that. Then they can start really trusting you, and maybe they'll share a lot with you. Maybe they'll share all kinds of really personal things with you once that trust is established.
And that's an interesting point too, because introverts, once they enter in that trust, then things really open up, and you really do want to get there, because if not, there can be big elephants in the room, and they can grow and grow and grow and not get solved. That's another big problem in entrepreneurship, that if you don't create enough trust and communication, things just spiral out of control. And I've had issues with introverts that keep everything inside, and for months things start going downhill, and suddenly a top performer becomes a bottom performer. It's like, what's going on? And sitting down and being like, yo, what's up? Like, talk to me. I mean, this is not working. And like, and I've definitely seen that really getting some of stuff out to light and really talking about it changes everything. So really the point of this is be more patient with introverts, but don't give up on introverts when it comes to communication, because you really do want to establish that trusting level of communication where things really do work. Because if you stay with like, he's an introvert, and that's a problem with personality psychology. I mean, it can either help you improve things, or you can use it as box and be like, that's an introvert. Ooh, don't talk to the introvert. Don't go. And then they feel excluded. Then they feel ignored. Then they feel forgotten.
Then they don't have any information to go off of. Like I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast, but introverts work best when they have certain amount of information. So if you just don't talk to them at all, they don't know who you are, they don't know how you react to things, they don't know what your opinions are, what your personality is like. They can only try to estimate it based on what they see from afar. They're going to overthink and overanalyze a lot more, and it's not as conducive to a relationship. If you're sharing with them in a gentle, non-invasive way, but if you're sharing with them, if you're talking with them, if you're letting them know what's going on, then they have information to go off of, and they can make more confident choices.
And I'm a fan of bringing people out of the comfort zones and widening their comfort zones. And one of the things is that if you look at someone as, ooh, they have this personality or this element, so they are stuck in this situation. Bullshit.
Yeah.
The reality is, when you start stimulating people, when you start working on their insecurities, you help them regenerate, you really give them a sense of purpose, you unlock their passions. Every personality can do almost whatever, and they'll be agile, they can be open, they can be expressive, and things just flow. The problem is when you force to get to that point.
Yeah.
So you don't want to force getting to that point. But if you understand, okay, with an extrovert, I get to that point by inviting them out for beers after work, or making them feel like they're not just being used for work, but actually there's a friendship, and like there's adventure on the weekends, or things like that. With ambiverts is exactly knowing their family story, knowing what's going on in the home, like making them feel special, really taking them aside and having one-on-ones with them, and like those things are very powerful. Introvert, yes, is being a bit more patient and not so invasive and things like that. But then little by little, you can create a team that has certain unison, and where everyone enters almost in a, I'm going to say, ambiverted rhythm, with ramp ups, with slow downs, with moments that are more extrovert moments, like where really everyone is agile. When people are regenerative, when people are passionate about what they're doing, then they are super agile, super flexible, and super collaborative, and have mental clarity and flexibility to not feel offended, hurt, invalidated when things are done in a different way.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they actually want to step out of the comfort zone, but maybe they don't know how, or they want to be in a safe environment to do it. So if you build a community full of trust where people are respected, then people will take more of those chances of, actually, I normally don't like this thing, but like, can I try it this one time? And you'll see people wanting to learn new things, wanting to develop new skills. And when you allow that too, that's really important. And that's one of the things that is tricky about personality theory, that sometimes we end up putting people in a box and we sort of go, okay, you're introverted, do this introverted work, and I'll never talk to you again. You're extroverted, always social, always in front, always in public, and never any quiet time. People do kind of like switching it up, so long as they feel safe to do so.
And remember, I don't know if I emphasized it or even mentioned it in this episode, but we tend to mention it in every episode. We are a mix of all the personalities, we're a mix of all the elements. Personality types are not boxes. They are really a set of character traits, or really how you approach things, how you respond to things. And we are not just one thing. Different moments, we respond differently to different situations. And yes, sometimes it's because we have different internal like instincts that show up in different moments. Sometimes it's because some stuff is more biological, some stuff is more learned and societal, and some stuff just gets unlocked because we're super passionate about stuff and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And that's something that here at work I've seen people be like, some of the more most extroverted functioning members of the team in live events are actually some of the most introverted people as a baseline. Like, for example, when we go to big expos, sometimes the extroverts, because of the social anxieties and insecurities, things act more shy, in a more perceived introverted way. And sometimes we have introverts that are talking to people and being super charismatic, and they need to take breaks. They need to go put on headphones, noise cancelling headphones, and breathe for like 10-20 minutes every now and then. They might need to go for a walk and breathe. But some of the biggest events we've done with hundreds of thousands of people at expos, sometimes we've had introverts outshine extroverts. And like, as someone who's been a recruiter, both in my own businesses and before that I worked in recruiting, I've done thousands of interviews. I've hired hundreds of people for different projects. And sometimes you see someone and they come across as the most charming person, but then when they get into work, they have so many insecurities or so many limiting beliefs that they don't perform well. And sometimes you have people that show up and they're super modest and super shy, basically, and super like careful and nervous, but with the right stimulus and with the right projects, suddenly they unlock and they perform better than anyone. It's like, where did this come from?
Because a thing that I've seen a lot of extroverts go through is that because they're so driven to socialize, to talk, to move, and they take more risks, sometimes they're also more impulsive, and they'll say things spur of the moment that they then regret. Or they say the wrong thing to the wrong person or in the wrong context, or call people the wrong name, or, say a fact that they didn't fact check first because they were so excited, and in the moment they're like, hey, this argument totally applies, and then they realize it didn't. And so they can actually develop a lot of insecurities around that, where they feel like, oh, I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna say something stupid. I always mess up when it's really important, blah, blah. And so they can develop insecurities over that they might hide well, but that are there. Whereas introverts, yes, they might have a lot of insecurities about not being as extroverted and not having the same social drive as extroverts. But when it comes to things like work or studies, they'll generally get to a point where they've studied things and researched things and sort of learned the ways well enough that they develop a confidence in what they know. They're like, hey, I've worked with these tools, I've worked with this information, I've gotten the training, or I've trained myself, I've figured out how things work, now I can respond to anything, and then they're more ready.
When we go to expos, the most extroverted acting people are generally introverts. Why? Because they learn the tools of development at a deeper level. They study it deeper, they apply it deeper, they really want to understand things at a much more profound level. I'm generalizing, right? I'm generalizing, but I'm stressing an important point that hopefully can give introverts some confidence, because I know that introverts sometimes are very hard on themselves. All personalities are. And I'll flip the script in a moment. But the reality is, the two most extroverted people on the team right now that I think of, when we do expos, well, especially when it comes to more information-centric events, they shut down quite a bit, because it's like, what if I don't know the right wording, or if I don't know this stuff like correctly, and they can be hard on themselves the same way introverts can. But introverts have a easier time really studying things deeply and preparing. It's like preparing for an exam, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same logic applies to information-based socialization, right?
Yeah.
But yes, you take this group to a party, and yes, the extroverts, they're gonna outshine the introverts because they're gonna have more social battery. They're gonna, feel more confident in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it doesn't matter what personality you are. With information comes knowledge, and with knowledge comes power. And something that I've noticed is introverts, they often, by mastering something, they gain a level of confidence that they have never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And extroverts, sometimes because they've never needed that before in day-to-day life, when it comes to certain projects, then their imposter syndrome kicks in, their sense of being a fraud and not being prepared. And that can happen to all personalities. But I see it a lot with extroverts that have a lot of charisma and a lot of ability to charm people, but really sometimes learning the hard facts about things, it can be a little rushed, the process, and then it's like they mess up and have a foot in mouth moment and they punish themselves.
Yeah.
Like in the past, now I've gotten much better, but growing up, I was very good at charming people. I was very good at winning people over. But when it came down to having very technical conversations about things, it was like, my memorization, my this, my that, or the amount of time I spent studying that, I might have gotten distracted, and then my confidence goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say, doesn't matter what personality you are, the more you study and understand your topic, the more confidence you're going to have. But for introverts, it can make all of the difference. It can top your head of extroverts. And yes, extroverts, you got to find learning styles that work for you, because maybe sitting down and reading a bunch of books or manuals is like torture. And then finding audiobooks, finding videos, finding exercises,
learning with other people.
There are different learning styles, and you can go at it at an academic level, or you can go at it at a just basic level. What works for you? I mean, and that's something that as an extrovert myself, I sometimes find it very easy to get distracted. I find it very hard to sometimes finish certain things. But I also have a lot of drive to finish, but that's where support networks also come into play,
Mm-hmm.
You don't got to do it all yourself, you can ask for help. And I mean, I'm lucky to be surrounded by a lot of introverts that can complement me in areas where I lack a little confidence. But with time, with practice, I mean, I have way more confidence today than I had a few years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to overcome my imposter syndrome and my fear of rejection and stuff like that. But now in Develop Young, we have some very cool tools, because I've gone through a lot of hurdles to get to where I'm at today, and I'm only getting started, honestly. So it's pretty awesome. But yeah, so let's talk about some very specific stuff. Let's talk about the elements.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the elements. Let's go very fast through. Let's do 3 different rounds.
Okay.
Let's do this. Let's see if we can do an express round. How do you regenerate every element at work, for example? What would you do as a leader to regenerate one very fast? Will that be with phrases, actions, activities?
Okay. With electric people, which are the most extroverted type, you want to joke around with them. You want to be lighthearted. You want to turn things into games or turn things playful, challenge them with, different ways of doing things, maybe switch up the routine, be like, okay, we've been doing this the same way all the time. Let's switch it up. Let's do it this other way. Give them variety and give them opportunities to socialize and have fun. With fiery people, you want to set goals and you want to put a lot of trust in them and challenge them. You don't want to challenge them without putting trust in them in a way that sounds like you're putting them down, because then they might rebel and say, screw you, I'm not going to do anything. But if you put trust in them, you say, I trust you, I've seen your work, I know you can do this, I've always been able to count on you. Now I challenge you to do this. I challenge you to try harder or to reach further or to do this more than you've done before. then that drive and passion can kick in. I'm like, oh, this is exciting. I have to reach this goal. With aquatic people, which are the first of the ambiverts that are very emotionally driven, you want to create a very personal relationship with them. You want to notice the personal details like, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What have you been up to? How's this thing you told me about the other day? How's that been going? And personalize things. Make sure they know they're valued for who they are, not just for what they do. With earthly people, you want to give them a sense of harmony. These are also ambiverts, but they really are comfort and harmony oriented. They like taking care of other people, so you want to receive when they help you. You want to let them know, hey, that thing you did for me really helped me out in this way and that way. I'm feeling better. Thank you. Is there anything I can do for you? They might reject you when you offer to help them, but the fact that you offer to help them makes them feel seen and heard and valued. And also things are tense around the office, checking in with them, being like, I know things are tense right now. I know we're all stressed right now, but we're a good team. We work well together. Things are going to be okay. Reassure them that the harmony is still there, even if it looks stressful. With airy people, the first of the introverts, they're space-seeking, low-pressure type people. So you want to respect their process. You want to respect their way of doing things, but check in with them. Give them the key information. This is what we need to do. This is how we'd like the end result to be. If they have that information to go with and then you respect them, they can do a lot. If you're hanging over them, telling them how to do it, when to do it, blah, 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 they're more likely to shut down. So give them space, but check in once in a while. Still keep an open line of communication. With metallic people, the most introverted, give them a lot of structure and give them deadlines. They're routine-oriented people, so if you can do certain predictable tasks like, you do this one time and then you can reapply it to this, and this, or every Wednesday at this hour we're going to do this, or some level of routine, some level of structure, some level of predictability that gives them a lot of peace of mind that allows them to be more flexible in other areas.
I like it. So yeah, that's a very good speed round of how to generate people on your team. Or yourself, if you are of any of those elements, seek out people who provide you with that type of stimulus. Obviously, these examples were more of as a leader, how do you recharge them? Mm-hmm. But understand that people have these basic needs. If you see someone that's not concentrating or not being productive, it's stuck banging their head against a keyboard. There's where you can do those express regenerations, right? Mm-hmm. Now, how if you are of each element, what stimulus can you seek for yourself?
Okay.
Speed round.
I mean, there's similar concepts just turned in on yourself. Like if you're an electric person, maybe your boss doesn't get that, or your manager or your partner doesn't get that, but you can still turn things into a game. You can still try and experiment with how you're doing things, do it in new ways, try learning in different ways each time, switch things up, so that on the outside it might look like you're following a routine, but on the inside you're playing with how you're doing things. If you can also find ways of taking breaks that are respected, hopefully that don't damage your health, but I'm gonna not get involved in that one because that's your life and your choice. But if you can find socially accepted ways to take a lot of breaks and then come back to the work, that can also be very helpful. Also just having like fidget toys and all these things, even if you think they're out of fashion and not cool anymore, if they help you, go for it. If you're a fiery person, also you want to set goals and you want to remind yourself of the progress you've made, because a big thing for fiery people is that they're so focused on the really far away, really big goal, and that keeps advancing. Every time you advance, the goal also advances. So it's really hard to lose track of things and feel like you're not being productive. So a really big thing for fiery people, look back at the past month, the past 6 months, the past year, how much you've advanced, how much progress you've made, and count the little things, count the things that are harder to measure, because those matter too. Like, are you slightly happier and healthier? That counts too. Do you have a better relationship with people at work? That counts too. Really count all the progress you're making. For an aquatic person, I think understanding that not everybody expresses their emotions as openly and as freely as you do can help a lot, because that means it doesn't mean that the emotions are not there. just it's harder for other people to express their emotions. They think more about, oh, will it get weird? Will it be misunderstood? Is it out of place, etc.? So it's not that people don't care about you. They just might show it in different ways. So start looking at, okay, what are their primary motivators? What do they seem to be driven by? And do they include me in that or give me what they would want to be given? Then that's a sign that they care about you. Also, finding ways to get personally invested in the work, even if you have a bad relationship with your boss or your coworkers, if you can be personally invested in the project itself and feel like what you're doing matters, then that can also help regenerate and motivate you. If you're an earthy person, learning to take care of yourself too, because you're very good at taking care of other people, but if you don't take care of yourself, you are going to get more drained, you are going to get more worn out, and it's going to be harder to help other people. Your finesse in knowing what people need will get sort of less calibrated if you're not taking care of yourself as well. So learning that it does matter and it does have value to other people as well, that you take care of yourself, I think that's a really important thing. For airy people, taking pressure off yourself. Because sometimes nobody else is putting pressure on you, but you're putting pressure on yourself. And you're telling yourself how you're supposed to do things and how wrong you are. And you're judging yourself. Every break you take from work, you're thinking, oh, I should be working. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Take that pressure off. Remind yourself, okay, worst case scenario, we fail miserably. We make fools out of ourselves publicly. So what? We can pick up again and we can try again. There's always more opportunities. Learning how to talk to yourself in a way that takes pressure off is going to help you get a lot more done. And metallic people, also learning how to structure things in a way that works for you. Maybe there's chaos all around you, but what things do you have control over? What things can you organize? Maybe things are chaos at work, but maybe at home you can organize things more. Maybe things are chaos in most of the office, but in your cubicle or on your desk, you can organize things in a way that makes sense to you. Being able to support yourself with a certain amount of routine, and also having a mindset where you understand that things change, and sort of making that a fact of life for yourself. Okay, things change and other people are different and they need different things, can help, because you might not understand why the extroverts need to move so much, why the ambiverts need to share so much personal stuff. But if you can sort of learn why that is the way that it is, that can also help you in those environments.
Okay, now speedrun number 3. This is like a game show.
I'm being tested.
Yep. So far she's passing the test.
If I never show up on the podcast again, it means I failed this round and I got fired.
Yeah, I'm here taking notes as to how she's performing. So far, so good. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Yeah, no, I was gonna make a joke about how do you regenerate your brother. No,
you don't.
Please do. No, okay, so moving on. How do you sell to each personality?
How do you sell to each person? Okay. If I'm a little bit distracted right now, it's because we have a puppy scratching on the floor right now. Okay, she's calming down. How do you sell to each personality? With electric people, you do want to build a kind of friendship with them. You want to, make a couple of questions here and there about, okay, what are you going to use this for? Or what do you do? Or, oh, that's cool. And then maybe comment something about your own life. You do want to keep a relatively high pace with electric people. You don't want to go too slow and methodical in the sale with electric people. You want to keep it fun. You want to keep it a bit more upbeat. Okay. Yeah, I see. Okay, you want this. Okay, what are you going to use it for? All right. It works in this way. It can work for this. Okay, cool. More upbeat, more friendly, more casual. And you want to also show variability within the product or service idea that you're selling to them. If you can sell to them that, hey, this is not a static thing, it can be used in different ways, or it can be modified, or it can be personalized, then that can also be a selling point. For fiery people, you want to show prestige, you want to show status. If you can say, this is exclusive, this is new on the market, this is something that's rare, this is top of the line, this is the best that we have, in a whole range of products, this is the best one that we have. If you can sell prestige and status, then that's the selling point. If not, if you can sell productivity, hey, you're going to get more results, you're going to be faster, you're going to get more done. That's also a selling point. If none of that works, showing trust in them, complimenting them, respecting them, that can be a good way also of building a relationship of trust where they want to come back to you. With aquatic people, again, create a personal relationship. Ask them about their life and listen when they talk about things that are unrelated to the sale. You, if your personality is an aquatic, you might be focused on, hey, but that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to sell you. But for an aquatic person, that matters. If a client starts talking about their mom or their uncle or their cousins or their kids or their partner, listen to that. And then if you can sell them either the story of the product, service, or idea, like, look, it was founded by these people in this way with this vision and based on this relationship and based on this, and there's a lot of love and care that goes into it, that's a selling point for aquatic people. Or, hey, this is something you can share with the people you love. This is something that you can bring into your relationship and you can strengthen your relationship. It can help you have quality time with your loved ones. That's also a big selling point. For earthly people, you want to be low pressure and you want to sell them harmony. You want to sell them, hey, this is something that everyone in the family can use or everyone in the business can use. This is something that's going to make things easier for everybody, more peaceful, or it's really comfortable, it's really soft. You know, you want to sell them how comfortable the experience is going to be. And include other people as you would with aquatic people, but with a focus on people are going to be more at peace, people are going to be comfortable, people are going to be happy. And if the earthly person needs to check with and call their mom and call their husband or call other people and check with them, allow them that process, respect it, like treat it like it's a really, of course you're going to do that, you know, treat it like an obvious thing to do because to them it's an obvious thing to do. With airy people, you want to be low pressure as well, but you want to give key information in a sort of respectful way. You know, look, we have this sale going on, or look, this is what we have on offer, or this is the type of information I can provide you with. This is the kind of service, how it works. Keep it sort of basic, but give them all the key details that they would need to make an informed decision. They like to feel they're in control of their own decision. So with them, you don't want to go over the top with compliments like, oh, that looks so good on you, or, oh, it's perfect for you. With them, you really want to just give them the basic information and let them make their own choice.
As a fiery person, I've definitely bought many suits when the salesperson has complimented me.
Yes.
It's no secret.
With a fiery person saying, oh, that looks so good on you, you look amazing, wow, you're a head turner with that can be a selling point for them.
Once I bought a suit, the sales woman, whatever, she was like, you look so scrumptious in that. I was just like, the fact that you used the word scrumptious, I was like, oh, yes, I need this suit. And I think I used that suit like twice because it wasn't quite my style. But just that reaction was like, I need this. I'm taking this home now, like right now. Where do I sign?
Yeah, whereas for an airy person, that would seem like you're really trying to sell. Like they were going to question your motives a lot more and be like, yeah, you're telling me that because you want to sell it to me, right? So you don't want to use typical sales tactics with them. You want to really just give them the information and ask them, how do you feel about it? Do you like it? Does this live up to your expectations? Or is there something else that you feel is missing or that you feel that you need that isn't being included? And then focus on achieving that goal. With metallic people, you also want to be to the point. You also want to provide key information. And with metallic people, you want to be able to show that you're an expert. They're more likely to test you and ask you questions to see whether you really know what you're talking about. And then if you pass a test, they're going to trust you almost blindly. Like once they really believe that you're an expert and you know what you're talking about, that takes a pressure off of them from having to investigate things. So they're going to keep coming back to you. Because if they don't trust you, they're going to investigate everything themselves first. And they're going to look at, okay, what are specs? What materials are used, what's the quality of this, how long is it going to last me, all the more technical details they're going to look at, and they're going to make their own decisions. But if you can show that you're an expert, not invalidating them, not forcing it on them, I know more than you, but like just answering the questions and being ready with the information, then they're going to trust you and they're going to keep coming back to you.
Yeah. So now Now you have 3 examples of how there's so many different instincts, both on the like side of your team as well as in your clients.
Yeah.
And when you understand that, you can stop doing one size fits all stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can be here all day. I mean, we have a 3-day business class where we literally spend 3 days exploring all of this much more in depth with exercises and really some good stuff. And we work on insecurities and fears and yeah, that's the cool stuff. But like these speed rounds, the purpose of the speed rounds, more so than anything, is to spark curiosity, spark a desire to be more empathetic, more understanding, more flexible. And it's not about losing yourself and adapting fully to everyone else. You know, you're going to be your best self when you're true to yourself. But if you're regenerated, you're going to have the flexibility to be patient, to be understanding, to be empowering and not be forceful.
Yeah, most people are not looking for other people to be a carbon copy of themselves. They're just looking to be respected for their own way of being. So if you can be yourself and also respect other people's way of being, that's going to make such a big difference. And there are going to be times when you don't know somebody's element. Maybe they spend a lot of time in their lives not being themselves and they're a little bit lost. Or maybe you're new to this and you still don't know how to read the differences. That's fine. Just the fact that you know what the possibilities are makes you more compassionate. You're smiling. Somebody said something.
I just got a comment. There's like, yeah, Yannick, you look tired on camera. Like they
know how to talk to a fire person.
Throw some energy at it. You know, you can do it. And I'm like, yep. I'm suffering. I'm sick. But challenge accepted. So I'm now looking much more like alive.
Yeah, so that's how not to talk to a fiery person. No, but yeah, just knowing that there are these differences, knowing that they come from somewhere, from a certain drive, from certain priorities, that it's not that you're the crazy one or that everybody else is crazy, but just having this framework can help you approach relationships very differently and approach working with people, collaborating with people in a different way.
Yes. So let's celebrate these differences. Let's empower the people around us. Let's empower ourselves. As they say on airplanes, first put the oxygen mask on yourself and then on the people you're taking care of. But don't be stupid. Don't just put it on yourself and be arrogant and be like, this is how I am and I'm true to myself and like, if you don't like it, suck it. Don't be one of those people. You know, in Develop Young, we talk about everything that you learn here applies to being your best self, but also bring out the best in other people and being collaborative, being patient, being empathetic, and really being a badass. So let's be badasses and let's bring out the best in each other.
Yes.
And that way we don't burn each other out. We don't force things. We have impact. We close sales. And we change lives. That is really what we want to do here. And yeah, let's wrap up because I am kind of dying and I have a podcast in Spanish now. Do I also have to talk and I got to look less dead maybe? So
but I think we covered a lot of good
stuff.
No,
I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I mean, we have other episodes on this topic where we obviously have different narratives. We have stuff in team building. We have stuff in procrastination. We have stuff in insecurities. We have a lot of good free information here on the podcast. So if it's first time you join us, definitely go back and check our other episodes where we can really fill out a lot of the blanks. If it's the first time you hear about the elements and you're like, what is a metallic person? Like, okay, you tell me what to do with them, but I don't even know how to identify them. Go on our YouTube channel, subscribe, like, go on all the videos. We have videos that talk about, you know, how to identify each element. We have a podcast. The first episode, we talk about the elements. Yeah. The second episode, we talk about Regenesis space. I mean, we have episodes to fill in those blanks.
Yes.
If we're going to sit here trying to talk about every single thing in every episode, we'll be here literally for a week at a time in each episode. So we got to pick and choose for each episode. Obviously, there's some constant narratives that we're just going to want to make sure to get out there. One thing that I say in every episode, but I'm going to add here at the end. Remember, if you're not outside of your comfort zone, if you're not failing, if you're not being rejected, you are not growing, you are not selling, you are staying in your little bubble. And that, my friend, I don't encourage. So yes, take risks, learn new stuff, get outside of your social bubble, but elevate your skill sets. Level up. Don't stay static. The more consciously aware you are of people's needs, the more you're going to level up and the more impact you're going to have. So, anything you want to add?
if you have any other questions, if you have any other topics you'd like us to discuss that you haven't seen here on the podcast yet, let us know in the comments or contact any of us on social media, and we will make sure to have that.
Yes, because here at Develop Element, we talk about personality psychology, we talk about personal development, we talk about insecurities, fears, we talk about a million different things, and we're willing to take it to any direction because these tools can really help you in all areas of your life.
Yes.
And yes, obviously, there are the topics that we are strongly passionate about because those are the things we're living in the moment, like entrepreneurship. But there are many other topics that we do get requested and that we do have classes and workshops on. So if there's something you want to hear on the podcast, we'll make it a priority. So, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your patience and sitting through this, especially with my suboptimal state. And, see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a good one.
Have a good one.